The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of OLOS Media or its sponsors.
Welcome to From the Nest with Charity Jen. I'm your host, Jen Newmeyer. On this podcast, we have casual conversations with folks in the nonprofit field, so listeners get an inside look on topics like successful fundraising and networking. For this first episode, we'll chat with Doug Hodges, the executive director of Swing Pals in Durham, North Carolina. Doug and I met back in 2020, just before the pandemic. It was my very first Charity Chat meetup group where I had one person show, and that person was Doug. So it gave us the opportunity, just the two of us, to really dive into his mission and for me to learn more about his fundraising efforts. And when COVID hit and there was an emergency need in the community, he was able to raise more than $70,000. And now, 3 years later, he's launching a $500,000 capital campaign. So you'll hear more about that, as well as a brief introduction to Doug's dog in this episode. So stay with us. This is From the Nest with Charity Jen.
So it's hard enough to get by in the world. On top of that, not being paid right by your employer and being cheated out of overtime, being cheated out of the hours that you work, it's not fair. And if you're going through that, it's important to seek help. At Summer Shorts, they've helped thousands of workers just like you and me to recover over $100 million of unpaid wages. Go to summerspc.com to sign up for a free case evaluation.
Hello, Doug. It is so good to see you. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Jen, I've been looking forward to this, and let's go. Looking forward to this very much.
Well, let's start. I know that our listeners would love to hear a little bit about you and your background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Doug Hodges and about what you do?
Wow. Okay. So I am executive director of Swing Pals, and prior to that, Swing Pals is actually a second career of mine, Jen. I was actually working in New York City, and I became a big brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters in my mid-30s, and that drastically changed the trajectory of my life. And I very quickly decided, after mentoring a young boy, I actually mentored him from age 9 through 17, but after a couple of years, I decided that I needed to change direction. My career was not aligned with my core values, and so I quit work when I turned 40. And my mission was to become a member of the PGA of America and use the game of golf to help children who are underserved and face adversity, to help them, become, happy and more joyful in their lives. And fast forward, I became a big brother a second time in 2003. And when that match ended in 2010, I decided it was time to start Swing Pals. So rather than just mentoring one child, I could create a program that would mentor many children, and that was the genesis of Swing Pals. So here I am.
Now, when we met, I had just launched a new networking group called Charity Chats. And it was right before the pandemic. And I put out on Meetup that Charity Chats was launching. And we had a couple of people registered. And I thought to myself, even if just one person shows up, I will consider it a success. And you were that one person. And I remember when we sat down and we talked, and I was so impressed with the work that you were doing in the community. And then we started to talk about fundraising.
Well, you certainly, as a small nonprofit, we do not have a professional, a development person. And so as executive director, I drive the buses, I vacuum clean the carpets. And at that time, I was doing most everything. And fundraising is a challenging space. And that conversation certainly opened up a lot of opportunity for me as you gave some terrific guidance and some terrific ideas. So I look forward to sharing a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that I remember after that meeting, I think I even wrote a blog post about this executive director that I met that works 70 hours a week. But I clearly remember you saying, I love every minute of it and I wouldn't have it any differently. And it was so inspiring to me.
I get a little bit. I have affect when you say that, Jen. I get a little teary when you say that because the same is true today as it was 3 years ago when we met, as it was in 2010 when I started Swing Pals. I think I shared with you this is my volunteer work. I decided, when I was a big brother, that my life needed to be about service and giving back to the community, and so. I am fortunate, blessed every day to be able to go into work and do what I do with such an amazing team. It's deeply moving work. It's incredibly challenging work. Sometimes it's really painful to see some of the a lot of the pain that the kids are going through that we serve, and at the same time, there's tremendous joy because you're making a difference. And you see the impact you're having. So that is true even more today. In fact, every single day, that feeling gets deeper and stronger. There is nothing I would rather be doing short of being with my family. There's nothing I would rather be doing than going to work in the morning to help Swing Pals become bigger and stronger to serve more kids. And I could not be happier. It's pure, absolute joy.
Yeah. Now, what I loved understanding a little bit about, how you are working within the community, you actually are part of athletic programs at different middle schools. Like that is how everything got rolling. Is that right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. So what happened is in 2010, I actually started Swing Pals in Southeast Raleigh initially. The model as a PGA golf professional, the model was to take boys and girls off the wait list of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Obviously, after 15 years of serving as a Big Brother, I was very familiar with the organization. I also served on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So when I started Swing Pals, the model was to take boys and girls off the wait list of Big Brothers Big Sisters and match them with volunteer coaches that I would train, and together we would play golf. Mm-hmm. Terrific model. The only challenge was I insist on directing our resources to those children who are most underserved and marginalized. Mm-hmm. I will not hang a sign and just encourage everybody and anybody to come. I could easily run a junior program which is serving a community. However, we must target our resources to where the need is greatest, period, full stop. And so the model wasn't working because the kids I wanted to serve, once they went home on the school bus, they couldn't come back to the facility where I was coaching. And so very quickly in 2011, I realized that I'd have to take it into schools in order to get to where the need is greatest. And so I looked at Southeast Raleigh and I looked at Durham, the public schools, and I had a connection at Neal Middle School in Durham. And quick research showed me that they were close to 100% free and reduced price lunch. And so I didn't have the connections in Southeast Raleigh, so we brought it into Durham and served Neal as the first middle school. I quickly realized that Lowe's Grove, Shepherd, and Brogden were the next three schools with the highest rates of free and reduced price lunch. And so there was the model. We would start at Neal Middle School. We would add Lowe's Grove in 2014. We would add Shepherd in 16 and Brogden in 18. So it was a voluntary program. I would go into the PE into school during sixth grade PE and health, and the coaches would say, "Who wants to do golf with Coach Hodges?" Go into the back gym, and I would take 6 to 8 boys and girls into the back gym, and I would coach golf. And so at Neal and Lowe's Grove, it was a voluntary program. In 2016, the principal at Shepherd called me and said, "When can you come to my school? We would like to add Shepherd as your third school." And so I met with the principal at Shepherd, and we walked into the gymnasium, and I said, very nice, where is the auxiliary gym? And he said, we don't have one. And I said, well, where do you want me to do swing pals? He said, well, can you do it outside? I said, we can, but not when it's cold. He said, well, how about the cafeteria? So I walked out to the cafeteria and I said, I don't think that's going to work. And then he said, well, let's go check out the theater. There's a big stage in the theater. So I said, no, that's not going to work. I'm sorry, I can't do swing pals. And he said, Coach Hodges, you are doing swing pals in my school. You will deliver swing pals in the big gymnasium, and my entire sixth grade will go through your program. And so it went from voluntary in 2012 and 14 to a mandatory program at Shepherd in 16. Second semester 2016, the other two schools followed suit, and the rest is history. Now every student, when they enter one of the schools I serve in sixth grade, goes through the Swing Pals program. And so it's not really part of athletics. It's really part of PE and health. And then in 2018, we added Githens, and in 2021, we added Rodgers Her. So we currently serve 5 Durham public middle schools, and 1,000 sixth graders every year go through the 5 to 10 Swing Pal sessions during health and PE. And so it's really exciting. And I could share so much about the programming. For your listeners, Jen, I know they can't see me, but I look like a golf professional. I probably sound like a golf professional. I am a member of the PGA, but our program really isn't about golf. What it is when those kids, every single one of those 1,000 kids, when they come through in groups of 20, they quickly understand that there's coaches that care about them. And in the gymnasium, if you can picture 20, 11, and 12-year-olds in a gymnasium with golf clubs, and when I say golf clubs, these are plastic golf clubs that you and I can swing. Any of your listeners that are golfers, when I say plastic, they're not toys. They're heavy-duty plastic golf clubs, and we hit tennis balls at targets. But if you can imagine 20, 11 or 12-year-old kids, boys and girls, in a gymnasium with these sticks and tennis balls, it sounds like chaos, but it is not chaos. It is not chaos because there are circles, 20 circles on the floor, which is called their play box. It's their safe space. And in that space is where the paradigm shift takes place. And when I say the paradigm shift, Swing Pals is a paradigm shift. It shifts the way people look at coaching kids and empowers kids to be able to build a safe space around them mentally, physically, and emotionally, such that they are able to make good choices and decisions when life's adversity comes at them. And it really is just amazing to see these young people in the program really come into their own building confidence and self-efficacy. So it's absolutely terrific to see.
Yeah. So now you obviously have had to build a lot of community support in order to be in all of these schools. And I think we had talked a little bit about sort of not just the support, monetary support from the community, but volunteers. You've rallied interns. I think we had talked about, that support that you get. Tell us a little bit about how that all comes together.
Well, as I mentioned, what we do is very different. And so people come to us, the community is starting to realize that Swing Pals, when I started in 2010, 2011, 12, even through 2015 and 16, people looked at Swing Pals as a golf organization. What happens now when I have a conversation with somebody or any of my staff, I now have four full-time staff on my team. And I have a part-time driver, and I have a part-time driver too. So I have 5 staff, 4 full-time, 1 part-time. Every single one of my staff and every stakeholder in Swing Pals has to understand the mission and the vision, and needs to understand that the kids we serve are not broken. They don't need fixing. Our job is to provide them a space in which they can develop those social emotional skills, mindfulness skills, leadership skills that they can develop themselves to live happy, joyful lives. And when I share that with someone, Jen, the light bulb kind of goes off because most adults want that space for themselves.
True. Yes.
Most adults, when I'm talking, when my team is talking to people about swing pals, I think the conversation often that's going off for them is, my gosh, I wish I could do that. Because inevitably adults, the philosophy is that, as we grow older, we tend to take less risk because we try to control what's happening around us. The real joy in life and the real success happens when we let go of control, when we let go of expectations, when we let go of fear of outcome. And these are the conversations that I and my team have in the community. And so what happens is people come forth because they want to serve, they want to do good, but they also understand in the process that it's going to help them get to their potential too. And when we share what we do with golfers, and sometimes golfers are not our best volunteer coaches because they have preconceived ideas about how to play the game. But oftentimes when golfers hear what we do and how we do it, they cannot wait to want to become involved. Now, here's a problem because oftentimes I love all my volunteer coaches and I love everybody that wants to volunteer their time. But it takes a very special coach to coach swing pals. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to do. It is really hard to be a swing pals coach. It's hard because oftentimes we see kids that are really struggling. And at the same time, it's very hard because when we coach students, the coaches have to step back and not try to fix. Now, when you tell an adult that they're not allowed to step in and try to fix something, they don't like that. That's not comfortable. It makes them uncomfortable. And so the process of becoming a volunteer coach, there's 3 steps. There's 3 orientation. There's an orientation and then 2 in-person meetings. Oftentimes coaches kind of, okay, that's not for me. Yeah. But those that come through the process are absolutely amazing to be able to step back and allow the child the space to grow, allow the child the space to fail and make a mistake and not try to fix it. And so I think being consistent, the mission and the vision, and also we have 8, I don't know whether you remember this, I probably shared this with you during our first meeting at Charity Jen's meetup. We have 8 guiding principles in Swing Pals that underpin the mission and vision. And everybody has to understand the 8 guiding principles. And number 4 is vulnerability leads to learning. All growth and learning comes through vulnerability. To celebrate mistakes, not fix them. To balance acceptance and change. The guiding principles immediately center the volunteer coaches in the space that they need to be. And it's not very comfortable, but I embrace them, love them, care about them. And it's a terrific synergy seeing the relationship, a relationship between child and coach. And I'll just say this, Jen. I walk up to a coach with 4 kids and I say, how are they doing, coach? And the coach will look at me and start saying something. And I look at the kids, I say, coaches, how's he doing? Because we learn from the kids. We learn from the students. So that's a little bit of a long answer to your question, but recruiting coaches is, a lot of people come to us and it's a very special process.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good sort of pivot because I love what you're saying about taking risk and, the vulnerability, that and the experience that comes from that, because I think that there is a direct correlation, particularly in the experience that I have had in fundraising with nonprofits that are risk adverse. that are afraid to make changes. And I recall from our meeting that you were very open and receptive and excited about launching into some very what other executive directors, you may be surprised by this, but it's true, what other executive directors would actually be very fearful to do, to take risk with launching a large campaign, getting a lot of support for it, and really sort of diving in to the community and asking for support. So I almost think that the just sort of the whole basis of your organization, your approach to working with the kids always also carries over to the way that, I've heard once before, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I almost feel like there is a correlation there for some of that fundraising work that you have.
I am an amateur fundraiser. I am an executive director. I always used to. I served on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I never enjoyed asking people for money.
Yeah.
Now, I absolutely love asking people for money, and I think it obviously relates to the passion and understanding of the mission and the vision. That I know where every penny goes. I know we're very efficient with our money, with our dollars. And so I absolutely love what I do. I'm still an amateur fundraiser. I've never had any training other than what you gave me, and that is absolute truth. You are the only coach I've ever had fundraising. When we sat down 3 years ago, I think the budget. I mean, relatively small organization, but I really don't remember. But you talked about how it's really important to set a goal and have a timeline on that, raising X amount by a certain date, and hadn't really thought about that before. However, when COVID came, when Durham Public Schools closed, the first thing I did was go out and spend $1,000 of my money to buy groceries for families that I knew had no food in the house. Yeah. But then the next week, I set a goal of raising $25,000 to feed families over the next 10 weeks. And very quickly we attained that goal, and we ended up raising $85,000, feeding 73 families and 277 Durham Public School children for a period of 6 months, where every day we delivered food to families in need. Those first 2 months, there wasn't a soul on the road. And I was driving the Swing Pals bus delivering food. But that conversation we had was probably a month before schools closed. And your voice was resonating in my mind, in my head. And I set that specific goal of raising $25,000. I reached out to the community, and lo and behold, they responded. Clearly there was a crisis, and clearly people knew that we have to do something. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing that I have learned, I work really hard at what I do. I work really, really, really hard to raise the money we need to serve the kids, because I see the need. And I communicate individually with every donor. I very rarely use Salesforce or Constant Contact or a mass email. It's about building relationships. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you the depth of those connections I have with all of our donors. Now, that's down to about the $250 mark. Beneath $250, I can't reach out to everybody individually. But I think the real key is to passionately share the work that you do and the impact that you're having. And when you are committed and share the work that you're doing and the impact you're having, I think people are very willing to support that. And I am deeply moved by every single one of my donors. So yes. I'm not sure I answered your question directly, but I think it speaks to the vulnerability side. Mm-hmm. I and my team do work that is incredibly powerful in helping these kids build this space. And the community is understanding the model, what we do, how we do it, and responding. So
Mm-hmm.
I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm overjoyed by the success.
Yes. Well, I am on your email list, and every time I get one of your impact reports, I just love seeing it. So you do a really good job of sending those out. And I know, I'm sure you feel like you can do it more often, but even those sort of touch points of sharing with your email list, even on a yearly basis, or twice a year, or however often you do it, it's very special. It really means a lot.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that impact report. Um, it is the highlight, one of the highlights of the year for me.
Yeah.
I actually produce that in house. I actually do that pretty much from start to finish, and so I always am surprised when I come out with the finished product. I'm like, wow, did I do that? Um, but I absolutely love conveying to you the benefit of your support. That means so much to me. And in September, October time, to start reviewing what we have done the previous year, and to share the stories and the quotes from the kids and the pictures of the kids, and to convey the methodology and the philosophy in that impact report. That's one of the highlights of my year. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Now, you have also haven't you had some of your students come back and sort of help out with, because there are other things that you do in the community as well. Is that like you take kids out for other kinds of engagement within the community?
We will do college visits once a year. We'll
Okay.
have community outings, whether it be frisbee golf or college visits. Um, we haven't had graduates come back to be coaches. We lost a lot of the high schoolers during COVID, but we're starting to see more of the graduates of Swing Pals, once they're in college and they're coming out of college, starting to show an interest. So I think that's going to be a real critical piece when the kids start to come back who have gone through the 6 years. Because I don't know whether you remember this, but when students come into the program in sixth grade, um, we'll work with about 15% of the 1,000 kids. About 150 kids will go through the sixth grade program. But when a child enters the seventh grade program, they can stay for 6 years. So we actually
Oh,
have kids who stay in the program for 6 years. So when they graduate, to have them come back and then be coaches,
yes.
for the younger folks, I think that'd be really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, that will be amazing. I look forward to seeing that in your impact report. In one of your
It will be
future
there.
your future impact reports. Okay, so I know that we're running. Just we have a few more minutes. I really wanted to also touch base with you on your ABC 11 feature. That's the local news in Durham.
Hmm.
And I was very excited to see the video. I thought it was just great that you have that coverage, but you have something even bigger coming up this week. Yes?
Oh yeah. So on Thursday we'll have the PGA of America. Obviously, I'm a PGA member, and the PGA of America have supported us for the last 4 or 5 years through scholarships. They have something called PGA Junior League. So when a PGA professional coaches a child who lacks resources, the PGA of America will give that PGA professional $150. So obviously, I don't take that money. For every child that comes through Swing Pals that registers for PGA Junior League, then the PGA of America supports Swing Pals. And so the program has been very successful, and the PGA of America have committed to us that we can not only do PGA Junior League at the golf course for our after school students, but in September of next year, they will allow us to run PGA Junior League through kids during the school day. And so instead of 50 or 100 students going through PGA Junior League at the golf course, over 1,000 Durham Public School children, most of whom are minorities and free or reduced price lunch, will have that PGA Junior League experience during the school day through Swing Pals. And that obviously is going to bring a tremendous revenue stream to Swing Pals, so we can add the remaining 4 Durham Public Middle Schools. So we have got quite a lot of recognition from the PGA over the last 2 or 3 years, as they have understood the depth of the work that we're doing in the Durham community, really impacting at the grassroots level, going into the community where the need is greatest. And I actually received the Carolinas PGA Section Community Impact Award earlier this year, which was a huge honor. And now they would like to come in. They're doing a special on CBS, which will be aired in July, and they're featuring a number of different PGA professionals around the country who have successful programs. And so they asked, could they come in to film Swing Pals and tell the Swing Pals story as a part of that special. So it's going to be really exciting. We've got the PGA, the team, the producers coming in on Thursday, and it's really cool. We're going to have a 12th grader that's been in the program for 7 years, a 7th grader that's a 7th grader at Shepherd Middle School, and then we'll have about 20 to 25 6th graders who are in our after school program who are new. So you have these three different ages of students, and it's going to be really cool to see the PGA tell the story of how their support of Swing Pals has helped impact the lives of so many Durham families who are underserved. So I'm really excited about that. So that's gonna be a big one.
Oh, I am so excited for you. I want to cheer. I can't wait for that to come out. Oh, I bet they're so excited. I bet the students are so excited for Thursday. I can't imagine. They're probably excited and nervous. Oh, that is great.
I just had a conversation today with the communications director for Durham Public Schools, because we have to get releases. It's going to be really cool because they're coming to the after school program at Hillendale Golf Course on this Thursday. And then Friday morning, they want to come into Lowe's Grove Middle School to film the 6th graders during the school day in the gymnasium doing Swing Pals. And so you're going to have this whole story told of how, the 1,000 kids start, how they go through the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade program, and how they end up being a 12th grader. So it'll be a really cool story. But really the partnership that we have with Durham Public Schools, I had to speak to the director of communications about getting the necessary releases. We've been delivering programming in Durham Public Schools for 11 years. I've been walking the corridors of the schools for 11 years now. And we have that trust with the Durham Public Schools and the principals that Swing Pals is delivering programming that is having a huge impact. And even at the Durham County level, Durham County fund Durham Public Schools. We actually just received a $200,000 grant from Durham County, which is, again, it's a reflection of the understanding that we're not a golf program.
Yeah, right.
Looks like golf, smells like golf. I look like a golfer.
Yeah.
But the community's starting to understand it's about giving these young people a safe space, which we call their play box, and then giving them those mindfulness skills, those social emotional skills, the emotional regulation skills, the self-awareness skills that everybody needs when adversity strikes. You need those mindfulness skills to be able to respond in a healthy way. And the community is starting to understand that shift, that paradigm shift, that if we give the kids the safe space, we can actually learn from them, and we can empower them, and we can learn from them if we step back. And I think that is something that is really resonating throughout the community. So incredibly proud to do what I do. I will continue to do it for as long as I possibly can. And at the same time, recognize that I'm dispensable and the organization has to survive. And so I have to step back and make sure that the organization is sustainable And we're at that point. We're at that point. And I think without, and I truly mean this, I never had anybody talk to me about fundraising until I met you.
Yeah.
That was the first time somebody helped me with fundraising. And I'll always remember that moment where you talked about where you have to have a set goal and put a time limit on it. I'll wrap up with this. I know that we only have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing a $500,000 capital campaign right now. I need to put a building on Hillendale Golf Course that is 2,100 square feet, because we have a little tiny hub right now where the kids have, and so I've got this building picked out and designed, but I have to raise $500,000 to deliver it. And so my understanding is that I did a lot of digging around for fundraising, and you probably understand and know that at the state level there's a lot of discretionary funds. And so my understanding is from the people I've talked to and the people I am connected with right now, that if I can raise $250,000, there's a very good chance I can get a match from the North Carolina Economic Development Group, because there's always discretionary funding looking for organizations doing the work that we do, especially when you're hiring folks, and we're rapidly growing. And we're serving 1,000 minorities every year in Durham Public Schools. So the narrative is solid. The history is there. The narrative is good. And so I have to raise $250,000 over and above my operating budget. And so separate from our operating budget.
Yep.
So I'm right around 210, 220. And so we're close. And again, it's setting those targets, and sharing the narrative, the methodology, the process, and then asking for the help and putting a time out there that you need it by. And I will report back to you in a couple of months. I'll let you know. I'm hopeful that we raise the 500. But I'm very grateful for everything that you've done for me and for Swing Pals. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Doug. I think one of the other really important things, that lessons that our audience can take away from this, is that it is the story that you're telling. That passion will equal support from the community when they understand how the impact that you're making, the passion that you have, the community that you're serving, that is the basis of any campaign that you're running. So yes, a goal is great and a deadline is great, but the way that you tell the story of the impact that you're having is so moving. So as we close, I'm sure there are many listeners who probably are curious about your organization and may even want to support it or get in touch. So how can they do that?
Well, thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. Visiting swingpals.org. And that's swingpals.org. And drop me an email. Go to the website. You can donate through the website. But please drop me an email. Ask me some questions. Let me have a conversation with you. And I would like to share the work that we do. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Yes. Well, Doug, thank you so very much. It has been wonderful to catch up with you, to hear how everything is going. I am so delighted to have you as a part of this first season of the podcast. And I just really appreciate your time, because I know you're so busy and you're running off right now to go do more things.
Jen, it's a thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. It's great to see you. Wish you the best of luck, and I'll connect with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Doug.
What a delight to talk to Doug. His passion is just so contagious. It really strikes you right at the heart. He claims he's not a fundraiser, but that dedication to the community and to those kids, that's really, really just the hook for a successful campaign. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you'd like more nonprofit fundraising resources, visit my website at charitygen.com. You can sign up for my monthly newsletter, get access to free guides, and learn more about my book, The Insider's Guide to Online Fundraising. This has been From the Nest, where fundraising takes flight. Thanks for listening.
This episode was produced by Olas Media Network in San Diego, California. Jessica Garcia serves as general manager. Lena Alvarez is associate producer. Elia Ramos is creative director. JC Polk is executive producer and founding partner. And Chad Peace is our president and founding partner. Thank you for listening.
Olas Media.